And we're off to the races. Let the proverbial good times roll. Ladies and gentlemen, I am beyond stoked. It's not every day. Well, every day I tend to bring you somebody great, right? But it's not every day that I have a great actor who's been on Netflix shows, such as this wonderful cat I'm about to present to you. This guy not only did this, but he went back to his hometown of Farmington, New Mexico, and began his own school to teach the folks from tomorrow, if you will, and actually got the youth to be able to, in stuff. So they actually booked. It wasn't just the school where they give you a bunch of a hodgepodge of information and a slew of stuff and promise you pipe dreams. No, he was delivering, guys. This guy is an amazing man. We're about to have him, the past guy. Boy, this podcast is going to be unbelievable. What a treat. My sit down today is going to be otherworldly, out of body experience, I say. Fresh off a Netflix show, Pulse, a small town dreamer from Farmington, New Mexico. Guys, give it up for the one and only Heath Adam Cates.
Hey, thank you, man. That was quite the introduction, I gotta say, brother. Thank you, man. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate this.
Dude, are you kidding me, man? I'm very blessed to know you, man. And you know what? We also have to mention in passing, you just finished shooting Random Canyon, right? An episode on that, a Netflix show as
Ransom
well.
Canyon. Yeah,
Okay,
Ransom
Ransom
Canyon.
Canyon.
They're
Okay.
taping their second season currently, and last month I just shot a scene in that. It'll be episode 1. So Ransom Canyon season 2, episode 1. You'll see me shining the screen for a little bit there.
The silver screen. I love
Yeah,
it.
man. Yeah. So just trying to stay active, man. Trying to keep the train rolling.
Well, you sure are, and you have the wheels in the right track. You also, I noticed you take good care of yourself. So we're also gonna delve into that as well. Like I want to know what makes you tick, man. How you get up in
Yeah.
the morning. What's your ritual?
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
and your chants and your prayer, right? You're a godly man, good man
Yes,
of
sir.
God, and
Yep.
and maybe you drink. Do you drink? Do you have like green juice in the morning? Is that part of your?
I don't because most of it has sugar in it. No, no,
Excellent.
I stick to a high protein regimented diet.
Okay.
I've been a personal trainer for the past 13 years, actually.
Holy moly!
That's what's allowed me to pursue acting full time. I've had corporate jobs in the past. I worked in the oil field for 6 years, and
Holy
trying to
moly!
pursue an acting career while maintaining a steady job like that is, as most actors know, is pretty impossible. So,
Awesome.
fitness has always been a big part of my life. I played college baseball, and I knew it was an avenue that I could excel in because I'm passionate about it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I really, truly do love to help people. It's very rewarding,
Yes.
and I've been gracefully enough allowed to do it full time for the past going on 14 years now.
Wow. Remarkable. Remarkable, bro. I kudos to you, man. And the
Thanks,
fact
man.
that let's back up a little to go back to a 12-year-old boy
Mhm.
in Farmington, New Mexico,
Yeah.
going to see Braveheart. Such a great,
Yes.
outstanding movie with Mel Gibson. Tell us, when you watch this film, this is kind of a catalyst. This kind of gives you
Mhm.
that little itch, right?
Yeah.
You get
Yes.
bitten by the bug, so to speak. And then you decide on, hey, I got to give it a try myself. I think I have movie star looks, right? Maybe I might be able to, I might be able to cut out a nice little, what a sliver of this so-called Hollywood dream.
Yeah.
What was going through your mind? Tell us.
Man, to tell you the truth, at that time, at 12 years old, I didn't really see myself pursuing acting.
Mhm.
I'm from a very small town in Farmington, New Mexico, baseball driven. I mean, everybody in this town is just baseball, baseball, baseball. We host the biggest high school uh, tournament in the country. It's called the Connie Mack World Series, which I'm writing a script about right now currently.
Very
Keep
cool.
that under wraps. But
Yeah.
anyways, at
Keep
12
that
years
in
old,
under wraps.
yeah,
Mhm.
I went to the cinema with my dad, and he took me to Braveheart. And my mom wasn't too happy because it was a rated R movie, but he took me and my brother. And keep in mind, this is a time where there's intermissions, and it was a lot different back then. But I just remember watching that masterful cinematic piece and walking out just being amazed. and I
Yeah.
really I looked at Mel Gibson and just totally idolized him and William Wallace. And that was the first time that I was ever truly touched by a film. You know what I mean?
Right.
I never really kind of experienced the depths of what cinema can cause in a person until I watched that
Sure.
movie. So that was definitely the spark.
Plant the
However, I really
seed.
didn't get into acting until I was, gosh, going
21.
almost 21 years old. Yeah, I just finished my baseball career. I had an injury that kind of ended my baseball career.
Ouch.
And to be honest, I kind of fell into acting. My brother, who is an amazing actor, who I am
Wow.
constantly trying to pull him back in the ring of things. He had a full ride scholarship to NMSU for acting for theater.
Holy mother of God,
And
really?
at that time, I was really depressed because of my baseball career was over. And I wouldn't say I was too introverted, but I was just very not as outgoing as I am now. I wasn't
Yeah.
really comfortable speaking in public, all that good stuff. And so I had asked my brother one day, I was like, hey man, what should I do just to kind of help me get out there more? He said, brother, take an acting class. And
Right.
that was a wrap, dude. I took an acting class. The first acting class I took was an improv class. And man,
Great.
boy, do I tell you, I have done improv since that day, since I was 21. I've always been in an improv class. Later on in my life, I started teaching some improv, but it was
Yeah.
so impactful for me that it really brought me out of my shell. It
Yes.
it inspired me to really go places that I never thought I would go. And here's a funny story. That same year, I watched, I think it was season 1 of American Idol. Now, this is kind of a funny story. And I'm pretty sappy. Like, I love American Idol. I love America's Got Talent, shows like that, because you see real people chasing after their dreams, which I feel
Pulls,
95% of the world does not do. You know what I mean? They
pulls at
just
the heartstrings, right? Doesn't it?
yeah, those shows pull your heartstrings, man. But I remember season 1, it was either season 1 or season 2. And I just remember watching that show, just literally feeling again what I felt when I watched that Braveheart movie. Like,
Yeah.
it inspired me, and it was like, man, go for your dreams. And so I really got into acting. I decided to audition for my first theatrical play, and it was at Mesa Community College. The show was called Life Is a Dream.
Okay.
It's a contemporary Shakespeare translated into English. Basically, it's like The Man in the Mask is what the
Right.
play was. But anyways, I booked the lead role, and
Right.
lo and behold, that really that really got me hooked, man. I tell you what,
Sure.
just the process of rehearsals, the process of the show, the camaraderie of the cast, and just all that went into it. It just swallowed me up, man, and I
Like
fell
a
in love with it.
vacuum.
Yeah, yeah.
I
So
mean, the idea, and not to cut you off, I want you to continue with the story, but two things stand out in my
yeah.
head. The improv. Everyone ought to take an improv class. It takes you out of your mind and lets that creativity flow. And it's almost like a magic spell takes over, and suddenly your imagination grows from there. And
Yeah.
hence is how an actor really grows, right? From taking someone
Oh
from your
man,
mind and actually creating. And it's the only way to really create, to improv. Fantastic. Number two, um,
absolutely.
I think about you landing that role and how significant that was to you in the process, because it kind of solidified, it almost reinforced the fact that what you were going in, the trajectory you were going, you were in the right place, right? On
Yeah.
track,
Yeah.
like you just said earlier on and the also, if you back up a little, baseball. Of course, we're having the right now the World Series. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But
Hmm.
baseball, having been a discipline, it helped you, right, in so many ways, doesn't it? It's quite
Absolutely, man.
amazing.
It's
It's
just
quite amazing.
commitment, and
Yeah.
this is something I can say. I've been now pursuing acting for over 20 years. And the thing about it is, you're not going to get anywhere unless you're super consistent with it.
That's right.
I know a lot of the actors out there that are going to watch this podcast understand that you might audition 200 times and still not get a yes, 300 times not get a yes, or you might get, you might book your first audition. You just never know. But consistency is what's going to allow for that long term success. And
Yes.
just just the grit and just sticking with it. And, you know, in the past 20 years, I wasn't always 100% going for the acting dream. I had,
Yeah.
you know, I had gotten married. I have almost four, or no, a now 14-year-old daughter. And so, you know,
Congratulations, bro.
there's a period of 10 years where I really just kind of focused on family and my daughter and things like that. But
Yeah.
now I'm at the age where I'm like, hey, it's time for me to go back at it 100%. But yeah, baseball was a huge component to my just determination and willingness to work hard. You know, when you play sports at a collegiate level, especially, you understand that it's so competitive, and you got to really put in the extra hours that those others are not willing to do. You know, and
You think
let me
about the World
backtrack a little
Series
bit
right now.
to your improv bit. For me, improv has been the most vital technique I've ever used, and I've
Yeah.
done scene study with countless acting coaches. I've done auditioning technique with countless coaches over the years, and auditioning is a one thing that allows somebody to truly be comfortable in an uncomfortable situation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's a tagline that I always promoted in my school when I was teaching was get comfortable in uncomfortable situations. That's what improv does. And if
Wow.
you're taking a scene study class and you're uncomfortable, you're not going to be good. If you're doing an auditioning technique class and you're still uncomfortable, you're not going to be good. You know,
Yeah.
uh, improv just allows you to be your authentic self, you know, and just put yourself in those situations. So I'm always in an improv class or part of an improv troupe or whatever I can do, you know.
They call it almost like throwing all your inhibitions to the wind. You know, all the stuff that held you down. They know you can't do this, you can't do that. You do away with that
Yeah.
almost, and then you
Yep.
mind, and the subconscious almost just kind of takes over, and just it's so majestic and masterful,
Yeah,
and
man.
takes place.
If you can just stand up and be brave and have no fear, man, just amazing things can happen. And that's what it comes down to. Us as human beings, we're so fearful of rejection and embarrassment and judgment that it just puts a huge block on us, especially as
Yes,
an actor. So if we can just knock those walls down, break loose, have no freaking fear, the sky's the limit, you know?
sky's the limit,
Hmm.
huh?
Yeah.
The sky's the limit.
The sky is the limit, my man.
My man, it's unbelievable, but we're actually having an acting class right now, guys. This is like acting 101. I mean, even when we did it with DJ, uh, um, our good friend in common,
Hmm.
hence
Hmm.
why you're here. DJ is fantastic. I'm just going to send a shout out to my boy DJ, our
Yeah.
boy DJ, and we had an acting class there as well, and I think that that's very important because people, if you get the nuts and bolts of
Hmm.
acting, when they take a class, they know what to look out for. They know if they're being cheated, if they're not, if they're getting their money's
Yeah.
worth. A lot of
Hmm.
schools are just kind of like a one trick pony and
Yeah.
they're out to make money. But if you find a good school, half the battle is knowing why you're there and what kind of tools you want to learn. So it's very important that it's almost like an Almost Famous Radio podcast, many ways offers this kind of like a tutorial, if you will, for novices and first starters, people that want to delve into acting.
It
And
can be great information. Yeah.
thank you, Heath, for that. By the way, let's talk
Absolutely.
about your parents. Your upbringing. What was your upbringing like in the Cates family? What was that
Oh
like?
man, you know I can't be blessed enough to be honest. My mom and dad, they're just the kindest, most gracious people and loving people I know. I mean, they just, you know, they throw their shirt off their back to strangers all the time. It just, you know,
Fantastic.
they're godly folks, and I love them for that. And it doesn't matter. They've been through some real hardships for sure, but
Yes.
they've never lost touch with their faith, and they even dive into their faith stronger at those times. So it's been a blessing to really learn from them and see them, and just to see their willingness to love every individual, no matter how much they shouldn't. You know, to be
Yeah.
honest. So it's, you know, it's been a blessing just being their son, and you know, they're so supportive. I mean, so supportive. No matter any ups and downs I've been in my life, they've always been the first ones there. Always been the first ones to help out and be supportive. And I mean, you know, in this crazy world, trying to pursue acting, I mean, most people are just like, you are insane for even
Yeah.
trying. But my
And
mom and
we are
dad,
we are
they're my
insane.
strongest believers. They're my strongest supporters. You know, I have every year I create a vision board, and this year on my vision board, I had all these networks that I wanted to work on. And, I have Mel Gibson up on my vision board and Taylor Sheridan and all these people that I have on my vision board. And, I went home to my parents' house not too long ago. Well, it was earlier this year, but my mom on her kitchen, on her fridge, has a Post-it, and it has Heath will work with Taylor Sheridan. Heath will work with Mel Gibson. Like, she's even vision boarding it for me. You know what I
Beautiful.
mean? So it's
Beautiful.
amazing the support that I have from them. I'm very, very blessed, very, very
Very
lucky.
nurturing.
And I hope
Very
one day
nurturing.
that I can really give back to them. That's like, a lot of kids' goals are to give back to their parents, but for me,
Yeah.
that's my number one goal in life, is to provide for them in ways they can never imagine, and for my daughter, of course.
That's beautiful. You sound like a great son, man. Great father. Do
Oh, I
you
love them, man. Family's everything for me.
family is everything. Do
Mhm.
you inculcate like the same um obviously the foundation that you have, that goes without saying, you're gonna share that with your daughter. Now, what
Mhm.
about the arts? Is she showing inclination at 14 years of age of her performing, performing arts or that sort of thing? Any kind of performance? Taking up
So
a maybe
it's
picking up an
so
instrument?
it's to be honest, I'll get a little candid here, and I'm divorced from her mother, and so whenever my daughter was actually the reason why I started my acting studio and my performing arts studio.
Okay.
I was with my daughter. I always spend time with my daughter creating videos and just kind of capturing our fun moments, because for me, like, playing is acting. So playing and pretending and is something that me and my daughter have always done. And she was about 5 years old, and I remember video recording one day that we were just playing in a room pretending, and I was watching it back, and I was like, oh my gosh, man, she is just loving this so much, just loving it, loving it, loving it. And this is when I had moved back from LA, and I had gotten to experience all kinds of the sides of the business. And I was like, you know what, like, more kids need this. And so I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna put up some pop-up improv workshops for kids. And
Beautiful.
I went out and got, like, PVC pipe, and made like a little mini stage with red drapes, and got all kinds of props, and just really wanted to make it fun for kids, not thinking it would become what it did. But it was funny, the first workshop I had about 10 kids show up, but I encouraged the parents to stay. I told all the
Yeah.
parents, hey, I want you guys to watch your kids for the next couple hours, but I want you to stay. And so they did. The second workshop I had, which was the following week, we had 22 kids come. The third workshop we had, the following week, we had over 35 kids come. By the fourth workshop I almost had 50 kids show up. And their parents afterwards were like, oh my God, like, this was amazing. Like, I've never seen my kid have so much fun, and I've never seen my kid get out of his shell like that. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so from that point, I decided to open up what I called Kate's Creative Acting Academy. And
Beautiful.
we went on opening up a performing arts studio, and my daughter was a part of all that.
Get
And
it.
what's funny is my ex-wife came to these workshops, and she even came up and told me, which I was like really surprised, but she's like, this is amazing. Like, that's probably one of
Yeah.
the only compliments I've gotten from her. But she was like, this is really truly amazing. And so for
Yeah.
me, I really thought my daughter was going to be able to partake in a lot of what I was doing. Um,
Sure.
and so I opened up my acting academy, and we opened it up kind of on
Wow.
a large scale. So I taught all the acting and improv classes, but we did it for kids, we did it for teens, and we did it for adults. We had improv, then we had acting for TV and film. I hired 2 musical theater teachers, so we had musical theater classes for kids and for teens. Um, we had a dance studio also, so we taught 4 genres of dance. I hired 4 dance
Oh,
instructors, so we really turned it up, man.
functional. It's a full functional school in
Full
every which
functioning
way.
academy, and it was fantastic, until COVID kind of came and ransacked it a little bit. But to answer your question, sorry, long form answer is, my daughter, she really was loving it, and she got involved, but then she got really heavy into playing soccer. And
Good.
so her mom kind of put a nip in the bud on the acting stuff.
Kibosh.
And so my daughter's been really focused on soccer for the past, gosh, 6, 7 years. And so she plays for the high school soccer team now, which is
Oh,
great.
kudos to her.
She's an
Yeah,
amazing soccer player, and it's fun. She helps me with a lot of my auditions now. She's like my reader, and so
beautiful.
it's, we still get to experience that. And she's always a huge supporter of me. When I booked that Netflix gig on Pulse, she was like so excited. And
That was huge.
so it's, I know I have her support, and that's all I care about.
Yeah, you
If she
plan to
ever
see
wants
in
to,
some way. I
if
planted
she
to
ever
see.
wants to get back into it, and I said, hey, I'll hook you up, girl. I know how to do it now.
How did you? Was it transition your mindset from like a sports athlete to an actor? Mentally.
You know what? It's really very similar. I remember when I got my college scholarship, I was sent to the college I played at, me and one other guy, and we literally were battling head to head for the position and for the offer. And I was an infielder. I was a middle infielder, and a power hitter, a switch hitter. But we literally went head to head for 2 days,
Wow.
fielding every position: third base, shortstop, second base, catching, and hitting for 2 days. And then the coach brought us both in and was like, "Hey, Heath, we'd love to offer you, the spot on the team, and sorry, so and so, but we'll put in a good word for you at this other college." So the competitive nature is the same. It's just like going into a casting, except in baseball, I was up against that one guy. Now in casting, every audition I do, I'm up against 1,000 other guys.
Yeah.
So the mindset is just very much, it is in somewhat a way of competition, and you have to step up to the plate and perform. And what I've learned in the past, I've learned from my moments where I wasn't prepared. You know what I mean? There's many times in my life that I was up for big roles and I just was not prepared. And now I know like what it takes to be prepared. I've had the pleasure of working with an actress who's a lead on a show currently right now. And she's been asking me to help her with her reads for her auditions and stuff. And I see what she does to prepare. And I'm like, this is why she's a star. This is why she's a leading actress on a major TV show. You know what I mean? So preparation, when
Yeah.
preparation meets opportunity, that's when
It's
you have
opportunity.
success. Yeah.
Ain't that the truth? But a lot of it is more preparation, right?
Yeah.
Um, that
100%.
said, what does it look like? Is a favorite question to ask all actors, right? Would be, and it begs the question: how do you prepare for a role? Let's say
Um,
you get the script. From the moment the script lands in your on your lap, what do you do?
well, I first like to take a good solid read of the script. I'll read the script. I'll sit down and I'll really think about it. I'll let it breathe some air into my lungs, and then I'll start piecing together what parts of me I feel are relatable to the script and what parts of me are who this character may be. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Obviously, script analysis is a huge thing, and especially when it comes down to memorization. So, then I'll read the script probably about 10 more times. And then I really start to get a feel of what the script is, what the character is. And then I'll pull more bits and pieces from my life experiences. That's a great thing for me right now is I'm 42 and I have a lot of experience in life. So I feel like that makes a big difference too. But really, it's just about finding that relationship in myself with the character and bringing as much authenticity to it. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know, faking is breaking. You know what I mean? I don't like to fake anything. I like to just create real moments in those imaginary circumstances. You know what I mean?
Fantastic. Um, what did you study like Meisner, Stanislavski, Uma and such, or you method, or what is your
You know what? I have probably read every technique book. Um, Meisner, Chubbuck, Stanislavski.
yeah,
Um, I really got a lot from Stella Adler in her book. Um, but to be honest, I feel like every actor is going to kind of develop their own way of working, because there's very specific things in each technique that will work. You know what I mean? But a lot of
Totally.
times, like in Meisner, you can't sit there on set and do these repetitions for hours, between takes. you know, you have to
Yes,
you have to be right in it. You know what I mean? When they say action, you have to be right there in it. But for me, to be honest with you, the improv is what has allowed me the most freedom. When I'm studying a script or when I'm working a scene, or like before I go to a set and actually do my scene, I'll be in my trailer or before I go to the set or whatever, and I'll improvise the whole scene. I'll improvise it with just the intention of what the scene entails. You know what I mean? So I could just kind of get those real feelings, and just try to find those ways to connect to whatever is going on in the scene. Um, so for me, I swear, like, improv has just been my best tool, my greatest tool.
sure. Sure. You mentioned those moments and stuff, and the improvisation of like the actual scene, and it brings me back to basically the words are just thoughts of the supposed actor, or I mean the character,
Hmm. Yeah.
that you're fleshing out.
Yep.
That's so right on the money. That's so right on the button. I've heard that from many a person, taking classes with different actors, different former actors, now acting
Yeah.
coaches.
Yeah.
um you're right, and then as long as it takes you to the place where you need to be to deliver, I think there's you just got to go through all the process and see what works for you, but just being malleable and being able to adjust right from moment to moment is another big one.
It's being vulnerable is
Hmm.
what it comes down to. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
When you're working in TV or film, or I mean in any acting situation, you have to be vulnerable. You're putting yourself in front of sometimes hundreds of people. This last set I worked on, it was a big scene in a saloon, and there was 200 people on set. You know what I mean? And so you have to kick fear right out the window, and you have to just allow yourself to be vulnerable, allow yourself to experience that situation. You know what I mean? And that's whenever great things happen. No matter how small of a role you have or how large of a role you have to let yourself breathe life into those words written by the writer. You know what I mean? And you
Yeah.
can only do that if you just open yourself up to that circumstance, and you listen, and you really react to like what the other people are saying, and just
So
you have to live. Just like you said, you got to flesh it out. You got to bring life to those words, and you just have to let them sink in and experience it, you know?
you're an inspiration, Heath. You're
Oh,
truly an inspiration
far from it,
to
man,
like,
but I'm
but
trying.
you're doing the right thing, man. I have to ask you this. You mentioned arriving in LA for the first time and how naive you felt that you thought Mel Gibson was gonna
Yes, yes,
was
yes.
gonna nab you off the street. Tell us what that
Oh,
uh
man.
kind of how that all went, when you
Man,
first
I
set
I
foot.
was your exact typical naive, small town dreamer. You know what I mean?
Right.
After 3 years in Phoenix doing theater and some independent films, I was like, I'm moving to LA and I'm gonna go make it big time. And honest to God, I was like, I think I'm just gonna be walking on the street and bump into Mel Gibson, and he's gonna be like, "Hey, William Wallace, two," or something. And that's how things were gonna happen. And boy, was I wrong. I was very naive. I didn't know anything at that time. So I walked into, a sand pit that was sinking really fast. The first 6 months, I don't think I did anything to like help me achieve my goal. I was so lost. I didn't even have headshots at that time.
Yeah.
I didn't have anything. The only thing that I knew about was this thing called Backstage West. Because at that time, I had just barely got my first phone. 21 years old, barely first phone, cell phone that is. When I had to call home, I was going to a payphone. Some of you people don't even know what a payphone is nowadays. But it was
Mm,
just, I was so naive. But I heard about this thing called Backstage West, and that was a huge blessing for me because that gave me some guidance.
okay.
Because Backstage West, it used to be a magazine that you would go and pay for. You know what I mean? And it had all kinds of articles of acting, and then it had
Mhm.
like all the list of agents and agencies,
Right.
and auditions and theater productions and whatnot. And I remember seeing this audition, this huge cattle call for a
Yeah.
reality show called I Want to Be a Soap Star. And it was like it was a huge cattle call at Paramount Studios, kind of like
Okay.
those American Idol cattle calls. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go try it, check it out. But to make a long story short, I got very far in the casting. When I showed up on day one, there was about 1,500 people standing in line. The first day, you go through just a round
Nice.
of auditions with a bunch of different producers. I remember that day I did my audition, and Cameron Matheson, who's a huge soap star, he interviewed me, and I was like, "This is so cool! Like, I know this guy. My mom watches this guy on the soaps, you know." And
Yeah.
so, anyways, make a long story short, I make it to the top 20. So I make it to like the very first episode of the show where they announce the top 20, and then they go into the top 12 who make the cut to become the next soap star. But it's funny, on the day I got cut, I had to do a final audition in front of 3 judges, and they were two of them were like longtime soap stars, icons, and one of them was a big time soap manager. His name was Michael Bruno, and
Okay.
I do my audition, and I remember Michael Bruno tells me like, "Yeah, people just don't talk like that." like he digged me big time. Like he really dissed my audition. I was like, okay, let me try it again. I tried it again, and anyways, they sent me out to the waiting room. They'll be like, "We'll be with you and let you know how you move forward." And it's funny because this leads to another part of the story. But anyways, the producer comes out probably 30 minutes later and says, "Okay, we're gonna go ahead and allow you to leave now." So basically, I that was my cut. Anyways, move forward to a year later. I end up booking my very first speaking part on anything, and it was a very small two-liner on Days of Our Lives.
Beautiful.
But the funny thing is I met a girl named Allison Sweeney on that show, and she was, if you're into soaps, you know who she is.
Yes. Yeah,
But
dude. I know. I know who
but
you're talking.
I became really good friends with kind of the cast, and so I was always getting asked to go out with them and go to parties or whatnot. But anyways, one night I was at a cast party, and she asked me, "Hey, who's your reps?" You know, and at that time I still didn't even have any reps. I'll tell you how I got the job on Days of Our Lives in a second. But anyways, long story short, she says, "You know what? I'm gonna give me your headshots and stuff, and I'm gonna send you to my manager." And guess who her manager was? Michael Bruno. And so I got a meeting with Michael Bruno at his
Full
mansion in
circle.
Studio Hills. I went and read for him, and he signed me that day. The next day, he walked into Young and the Restless casting department, put my headshot on their desk, and said, "Hey, you need to bring this kid in for a read." And within a couple of weeks, I was now reading for reoccurring roles on soap operas, which is really cool. Yeah. So
That's
just,
a lot of fun. Wow.
networking, man, is crazy.
Yeah.
But here's a side of the industry that plays a large part, and it is networking and kind of who you know. So how I got a part on Days of Our Lives was, a little while after I moved to LA, my grandmother got really sick, and I went back to New Mexico for about a month while she passed away. And I
Right.
had an uncle who who works in around Santa Fe, and he basically sells mobile homes, right? And so I was talking to him one day about just the whole acting thing, and he was like, "You know what? I can't believe I didn't think about this, but I want you to come out with me to this guy named Roger Inman, his farm. He has a lavender farm out kind of by Santa Fe, and he's one of the directors of Days of Our Lives."
What?
I was like, "What, Uncle? You're just telling me this?
Holy mother
You're
of God.
just
The
telling
whole
me
time.
this?"
The
Yeah.
whole
And so
time, dude.
the whole time he was hiding this from me. And anyway, so he takes me out there. We just go on one. He said, "We're just gonna go. Like, I'm not gonna let him know we're coming." So we show up, and he wasn't there. His wife was actually there, and she was really sweet. The beautiful lavender farm, and we chatted with her for a while. And she's like, "I'll let Roger know you stopped by." Well, anyways, I go back to LA, a few weeks later, and I end up getting a call from this director. And he's like, "Hey, Heath, your Uncle Jim said that, you came by, and I just wanted to follow up. And what are you doing tomorrow? Would you be able to come over to NBC Studios? I'm like, yes, I'll be there. So the next day I go to NBC Studios and I get to pull in the studio lot, and Days of Our Life set was right next to the Tonight Show set with Jay Leno. So,
I
like
remember it, bro.
I'm
Believe it
literally
or not, I
walking
remember that.
in and I see Jay Leno's big sign, and I go to the Days of Our Life set and I meet Roger Inman. And he's just telling me, saying, hey, like, so tell me about you, like, what's your experience? And I said, I don't have any. I'm really green. And in comes walking Jay Leno, and right to Roger Inman, and they shake hands, and they're buddies. They're just really good friends because they've been next door to each other in the studio for years and years. And he introduces me to Jay Leno, and I'm like, I'm Heath. Yes, pleasure to meet you. Just it was a starstruck moment for me. But anyways, Roger, he tells me, he said, "Hey, look, I'm gonna get you in touch with somebody who's gonna help you out." And so he pulls this guy named Larry Bloom, and Larry Bloom, he was kind of like a background artist, right? But specifically for Days of Our Lives, he would have like under fives, which are small speaking parts.
Sure.
Every a couple times a week, or he was a day player at times. But anyways, he was older and had been in the industry for a very long time. And he said, Larry's gonna take you under his wing and just kind of tell you what you need. And so it was cool. I went and had coffee with Larry a couple days later, and he basically told me how it was. At that time, I was really big because I was from baseball, and I was, I'm like 170 pounds now, and I was probably about like 185. Just the first thing he told me was, you need to lose 20 pounds. He's like, first of all, you need to lose 20 pounds if you want to be a leading man in the soaps. You need to get, new headshots, because I had finally gotten some really cheap headshots at that time. He's like, you need to get new headshots. You need to put a resume together, blah, blah, blah. Well, anyways, I do. And then they started bringing me on as an extra on Days of Our Lives, and which was really cool because I got to
It is.
finally see how TV is made, and
Yeah.
on a soap opera, it's insane. They shoot 100 pages a day. And so they're like, pop, 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 pop. Like it's crazy. Actors get a bad rap for being on soaps, but you have to be a talented actor to do what they do, because they get one rehearsal set up and they got to do one take, two take max. You know what I mean? And a lot of times they're doing 100 pages of script a day. But
That's a
anyways,
heck of a lot of words.
that's how
That's a
it led to
lot of
me
dialogue.
getting yeah, that's how it led to me getting my first role. So I had done extra work for maybe a couple months on Days of Our Lives, and then one day the casting director just calls me up and says, "Hey Heath, would you like to do a U5 for us?" I'm like, "Yeah," you know what I mean. So the next week I had my first speaking part on Days of Our Lives, which was really cool. And I
Wow.
remember, man, I remember the amount of joy I had from those two lines that I delivered. I literally, because if you have one line or 100 lines, they still hook you up with your own dressing room, hair and makeup, like all that stuff. You don't get that stuff as an extra.
Wow.
Um,
That's amazing, dude. Even for
yeah,
one line, huh?
for one line. Yeah, I
Wow.
remember just going back to my dressing room and literally like tears down my eyes, just thinking, God, like, hey, this is what I'm meant to do. Like, be in TV or film as an actor, not necessarily a background actor, but an actor. You know what I mean? So that was my first just taste of actual, true actor, and that's what got me into AFTRA at the time, and so I've been SAG-AFTRA since 2005.
Wow. And I mean, bro, your life reads like a movie, bro. I love it. um, gee, I was hung on the last word, and every word you said, dude, it was just one of those legitimately very inspiring in more than one way, and also the story, I mean, your life, I mean, it's just beginning, and
Yeah,
I can hardly wait for the bright future, what it holds for you. And
thank you,
uh
man. Thank
and
you.
I really appreciate you coming on, man. You're so gracious to come on the show, and
No, thank you for
almost
having
Almost
me.
Radio podcast, dude. It's what I love doing. I love to showcase your type of stories. But I wanted to circle back real quick and tag the whole um situation with your Uncle Jim, he held the magic key to this whole thing the whole time, bro. I was just it was unbelievably funny when you mentioned that how life is. And at the end of the day, it's almost like The Alchemist. You remember The Alchemist, the book? This, you
Yeah.
go so
Yeah.
far, but
Yeah.
it was always under the tree where he was sitting at. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes you have to go through it, you gotta go out there and fish, so to
Well,
speak. Mhm,
it's
go ahead.
funny because sometimes I think like people just don't really believe that you're actually going to go for it. You know what I mean? And go and do it. Here's another quick funny story is I then find out from my uncle, that same uncle and my aunt, that I have a pretty famous cousin. His name's Raul Trujillo, and he was on like Apocalypto. He was like
Yeah.
that Mayan bad guy, the
Yeah, no
king of the
shit.
Mayans. He was on the Mayans TV show. I
What?
mean, he's been
Yeah,
in
dude.
tons. He's been in tons of stuff.
Yeah,
And
that's
they
mad.
finally were like, hey, I don't know why we didn't think about it, but you should call him and see, you know. And so I was able to call him and talk to him about the business, and you know what I mean. So it's funny, but I think to answer your question, sometimes people just don't really believe you're gonna really go for those things whenever
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
so outlandish. You know, trying to become a star or trying to become a working actor. I mean, it's so hard that people just don't believe it's possible sometimes.
But you from the humble beginnings back in New Mexico, um, the tenacity, working as a baseball player, going from sports and teaching you had to, it was almost like it was preparing you for this moment, as it were. You know what I mean, Heath?
Yeah.
And hard work and hard toil truly pay off dividends down the
Mm-hmm.
road.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to keep it sounds like you just kept trudging and kept, coming along and working as hard as you did, and chipping away as you
Yeah.
have. And there is no
Mm-hmm.
magic sauce. There's no, formula. The formula is one. It's hard work,
Mm-hmm.
long
Yeah.
hours, a lot of studying.
Mm-hmm.
And the improv seems to have helped a lot. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
that's cool because I remember taking some improv classes, and they really took me out of my head. And it's
Yeah.
important because it
Yeah.
stifles you if you're regimented into or place yourself in a box, so to speak. And
Yeah.
it's important to have the freedom to permit yourself
Mm-hmm.
to be like a child, just to you let your
Just play
imagination
pretend.
loose.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man. But some
Um,
kids are the greatest
mhm.
actors because they don't have all these hardships in life to block us. You know what I mean? They're just so
Yeah.
vulnerable because they don't care. You know what I mean?
Right.
And yeah, I always
Mm.
tell actors if you're stuck, go do improv for a while. You know what I mean? If you're stuck in a technique or if you're stuck just not having the breakthroughs you want, like switch it up, do some improv for a while.
Heath Adam Cates, ladies and gentlemen, beyond grateful.
Hey,
Uh,
thank you, my man.
you're
Really
you're
enjoyed it.
unbelievable, bro. I will be definitely in touch with you soon. DJ, you and I will have to catch up.
Yeah.
Are you based out of LA now?
No, so I just moved back to New Mexico.
Okay,
Yeah, just with auditioning, how it is,
it's
you're
perfect.
auditioning
Yeah,
from home. Yeah, I just want to be close to my daughter while she's in high school. So I'm
yeah.
back based out of New Mexico.
Truly, yeah. It's fantastic that you're there. You're definitely a good father figure, and your parents taught you well. My
Thanks,
man,
man.
may the Lord bless you always, Heath. We'll have to
Thank you.
catch up in New Mexico sometime when we're
Yeah,
out there.
or when I'm
Right?
out in LA, man. I'm
Yeah.
hopefully I'll book something soon out that way, and we'll grab
Well,
some
I'm
coffee.
sure you will, by the way. I'm sure you will.
Thanks, man.
Um, yeah, dude, thanks so much, bro. It's like you're well knowledge, and you're able to help a lot of people are gonna be watching this, and they're gonna
I hope
get to
so. Yeah.
understand the process.
Awesome.
Um,
Yeah.
all right, my man. That said,
All right, buddy.
your IG's right there. That's what it looks like, right? At
Yep.
Heath underscore
Yep. Heath
Adam
Cates.
Cates.
That's it.
Thank you so much once again. That's my show, Almost Famous Radio Podcast. Yours truly, Jim Francis Mesa, Heath Adam Cates, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Going goodbye until we meet again, my man.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you.